And we're off.
And racing.
Hello, Booktube. I'm Scott.
I'm now.
We are Gunpowder, Fiction, and Plot. And today, we're going to talk about all the books we read for the month of October. For October...
I feel like that's a very definite time period for some people. And since I last saw you. For me, yeah.
Yeah. Well, vaguely October.
Yeah.
We participated in Victober.
Yeah.
I participated in the Dostoyesky readathon, and I read some random junk, and you did a buddy read. You finished a September buddy read in October. I
did.
All right. Shall we get into it?
Yeah.
Would you like me to start or you to start?
No, you can start. You can waffle on while I have a drink.
A lovely drink. Oh, I've got mine here. We're having Gordon's Pink Gin and Soda. Berries, meat, gin and soda. It's quite delicious.
Cheers, big ears.
It's boiling here today.
Yeah, it's quite warm.
It's that time of year when Australia moves closer to the sun. All right, I DNF'd 3 books.
What were they?
Okay, the last book of the month I DNF'd was a book called Run Rabbit by John Updike. I just wasn't feeling this book. It was about a guy. He was a basketball player, coach, something. I don't know. It just felt like that this should be a sports movie and Ben Affleck should be playing him. And I just know.
You clearly don't watch sports movies.
I don't. I don't. I actually think that this is meant to be a really good book, but I really wasn't feeling it. And looking at Goodreads, it's a lot hated.
Didn't fancy your tickles. It's all good.
Yep. Didn't tickle my fancies. The next book I DNF'd is, The Fate of Fenella by 24 different Victorian authors, including Eleanor Trollope, Bram Stoker, and Arthur Conan Doyle.
Is this the thing that's like they all carried on the same story?
Yeah, so there's 24 chapters, 12 women, 12 men. They go man, woman, and they swap it over. And I thought, a little part of me thought that might be awesome, but the rest of me was scared, and for good reasons, because as bad as you think that could be, it was. Yeah. So I DNF'd that book. The last book, and I'm disappointed to DNF this book, and I think a lot of BookTube will be disappointed to hear that I have DNF'd an Anthony Trollope book.
I'm sure that BookTube is on tenterhooks.
They are. What dumb book did Scott DNF this month?
Was it written by some archaic monk?
I've only done that once.
Yeah. So what was it?
Anthony Trollope, Barchester Towers. It's the second book in the Barchester Chronicles.
And it was rubbish.
And I had a weird experience with it. I started it and I was like, yeah, it's. I've had an experience with Trollope before. I read his book and I'm like, I don't like that book. But I like his writing, but I didn't like his writing. Like, his writing is almost really good.
It's almost
but
really good.
It just wasn't...
Yeah.
Jeez, it's... Yeah.
Anyway.
So next. I DNF'd it.
What did you actually read this month?
Did I actually read this month? But I'm disappointed with Trollope, because I wanted to like Trollope. So, yeah. So maybe I'll give Trollope another try with one of his not Barchester books.
Maybe.
Okay, so I've been trying to DNF books when I'm not liking them.
You're trying to take a leaf from the DNF tag and that inspiration.
I think there's a few. I think it makes sense to DNF a bit harder. I think it's logical, and I want to read better books. And so when I say I read a 1-star book, it tricked me. Lady Orderly's Secret by Mary Elizabeth Brannan. This is a sensationalist novel. It's a Victorian novel. And it's horrible. And I was waiting for the twist to make all the yuck in the book, turn it all on its head. Essentially, what you should do is, if you and I have a fight now, and it's Victorian times, and the fight is about money, what I'm going to do, so we're in England, I'm going to catch the first boat to Australia. I'm not going to tell you I'm going there. I'm not going to ever write to you.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to go there. I'm going to go to the gold mines and see if I can make my fortune. And in the event that I do make my fortune and I come back, I'm going to be very upset at you if you've moved on. In fact, that's going to make you evil. That's going to make you very evil.
I mean...
And you're going to do all sorts of things to cover that up. It was just, this book was vile. It was toxic. It was anti-woman. And it was written by a woman.
Much like Society, husband. Anyway.
Yeah, it was just
Next.
It was rubbish. All right, on to my 2 stars. I'm doing this from worst to best.
Oh, that's good, because this is miserable.
This is miserable, yeah. So this does slowly build. Robert Jordan's Crossroads of Twilight is the 10 billionth Wheel of Time novel.
And it got 2 stars because the whole series is a waste of space. Yep.
It just last book was good. This book,
how many of these bloody things have you got to go?
I think I got 4 left.
Oh Christ!
I mean, I was wondering a couple of books ago, should I just can the whole series? This is not a series that I really highly recommend. It is fluffy and I'm not enjoying it. But apparently everybody says that the last 3 books are the best 3 books, and if you can get there, it's all good. And I've done all the legwork to get to the last 3 books.
Yeah, I feel like they say that to sell books.
They do. They do. It's like the Dresden Files. They're not misogynist after a bit.
They say that because they get to book bloody 165 and they're like, some other bastard has to suffer through this as well.
Yeah. The other 2-star book, and, you know, as we're, like, roasting authors that we shouldn't be roasting, it's George Orwell.
Yeah, well, he did kill an elephant.
He did kill an elephant. I read Coming Up for Air, so that's the last book he wrote before he did Animal Farm in 1984. It's written just pre-World War II. And it's boring and pointless and dated, and I can see why this one's not talked about.
Well, you're normally a fanboy, so it must be.
I love Orwell, and it just, yeah.
Okay.
All right, on to the 3-star books. This is where they get good. Let's start to talk of The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. So this is not, obviously not all of these books are for Victober, and obviously this one isn't. I wanted to read a novel by somebody of colour, and it's very hard to do that when you limit it to Victorian authors. This is the story of a young girl. She is twins with a boy. She's sort of discovering herself. She's a person of colour. She's an English student. Her mum's an asshole to her. This could have been really good. It's written in this like lovely slam poetry. You really start to feel for this girl in her life, because her life is just, you know, she's a teenager. She doesn't have control of her life. Her mum is so overbearing and so mean to her. And it's a very short book, and the way that it ends, it just feels like Elizabeth Acevedo got bored of writing and just said, well, this is where I want it to be, and
we're going to skip through
and we're
steps
just
to get there.
like, we're not, oh yeah, I need to cut it down. Like, it's just, everything was so accelerated. I didn't feel it was realistic. But up until then, it was kind of good.
Yeah. So
I would definitely read more of her. Her writing was lovely. Her words were nice.
Cool.
Yeah. Now, this one here. I don't know if that's going to come up properly on the screen.
You say that like every time you... It's a camera. It's not a little bird with like Flintstones.
Yeah, this new technology, this newfangled electricity,
Yeah.
I don't trust it. No. I read this as part of the Dostoyesky 2020 readathon with all of the awesome people who did it.
All of booktube, yes.
Yeah, I'm not going to list everybody because there was just...
Thousands of you.
Yeah, like half the people who subscribe to our channel did it. I only rated this 3 stars. I feel like I may be the person who rates this the lowest
In that group?
in that group. I read some very difficult Victorian literature this month, and I think this was the least accessible book. And I think that that is contrary to a lot of other people's opinions. And I wonder if that is something to do with me being Australian and them being American, or what it was.
You just found it hard.
I just found it hard. I didn't connect to his characters, and I didn't connect to his storyline. And I mean, there was so much good literature in this. There was so much good brain food and
I didn't
analysis.
connect to his stories or his characters, but I gave it 3 stars. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah, like I'm kind of bagging it to say why I didn't give it 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but yeah, I just felt it was... I didn't enjoy his message either, is the other thing. It was very... I mean, look, I'm an atheist, and there was a little bit of Christian...
Juju?
Yeah, in there. But, whatever. Next I read... Winter Words by Thomas Hardy and somebody else. I don't quite understand how this worked, because it was Thomas Hardy poetry, and in between the poetry, it like told the story of his life, right? And then it interspersed it with poetry, and it was cool.
Yeah.
Also, I really like Hardy's heroines' names, or his heroes' names sometimes, but usually his heroine's name. But in real life, Hardy dated a woman called Tryphena.
He likes a wanky name.
So that was his cousin. Yeah.
Not cool.
Anyway, this was lovely. He writes good words because he does. I really enjoyed that, but I'm not a big poetry fan, and I didn't quite. It's so dumb because poetry's never going in because it's short, and I'm like, where is this going? What is it like? I'm just like, I feel like I'm grading a horse for not being a sports car when I read poetry. Do you know, like
yes,
I'm like asking for the wrong
but
thing.
it really makes sense with the way you talk about how you experience literature as well. Like the way you talk about getting settled into a book and being grounded and that sort of thing doesn't fit with shorter sort of forms.
Yeah, that's it. And like, I like his writing, and essentially this is like a whole bit, like you could just maybe scour through his literature and grab the descriptions.
It's all the pretty bits.
It's all the pretty bits that are lovely in a book.
Yeah.
But as poetry, I didn't enjoy it as much. I also read a Thomas Hardy novel, A Pair of Blue Eyes. It's his 3rd novel. Speaking of good Hardy heroines' names, Alfreda.
Yes.
Alfreda, rather.
It's almost like the pasta.
Yeah, it is. Elfie for short.
Yeah, okay.
This was not Hardy's finest novel.
Well, they can't all be.
Well, they can't all be. They can't all be. I really feel like... So this was one of his early novels. And as I'm reading this, I'm like, oh, we've got this love triangle thing going on. Hello, dog. Don't throw the dog toy when you're not looking.
Does he like shatter the portrait of us? It's fine.
It's only our wedding photo. Jeez. I didn't actually break it.
No, you didn't.
It's not actually our wedding photo.
No.
Anyway, A Pair of Blue Eyes. Yeah, so this one, it was an earlier read, and I'm already forgetting bits of it, which sort of shows you how memorable it was. But essentially, these 2 guys fall in love with this one girl, and we have our love triangle going on. But it's Hardy and it's never a love triangle. It's always more complicated than that. I don't want to sort of spoil it. It is actually enjoyable, but essentially, if you've not read Hardy, then just go and pick up Tess of the D'Urbervilles, right? And like take a whole bunch of Valium, and then you've got a pair of blue eyes. Like,
Okay.
it's just a watered down version of it. I mean, it's not. It's different, but it's very similar.
Yeah.
All right, now we're on to the 4 stars. And I'm going to start the 4 stars with Anne Bronte, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. I quite enjoyed this book. 4 stars, but it has some problems as well. This is essentially a novel within a novel, right? And one of those novels I love. And the other one of those novels should have just been edited away. This tells the story of Helen. Helen marries the wrong guy. She has a kid to him. He's cheating. He's horrible. He's raising the kid wrong. He's doing all the bad things. And then Helen decides to leave him, and he doesn't let her leave. And he tries to control her, and she comes up with a plan to leave him. And it's a very, like, it's an early feminist novel. It's definitely got themes, definitely got lots of feminist themes going through it. Really good. That is the novel within the novel. That is good. The other novel has something with a guy and a girl, and 10 years later, and it's just pointless, and it just cheapens the other novel. And basically, you should wait until they pick up the diary of Helen and read that bit and not bother with the outside bit. That is my opinion. But that inside bit is lovely. That would have been pretty close to a 5-star read if it was just that middle bit.
So everything else was detraction.
But anything with the character Gilbert in it, that whole character, I know the narrator, if you're not familiar with it, that whole character should have been cut out, in my opinion.
You're savage.
I am savage. The next one I read is Isabel Allende, The Japanese Lover. So every month we're trying to read, I'm trying to read an author from a country that I have not read a book from.
Yeah.
And Isabel Allende, I don't know how to pronounce her name. I think it's Allende, is Chilean. The Japanese Lover is about love and death.
Sounds Japanese to me.
It's about this lady and her friend who is a man and Japanese, and they're lovers, but they're not married. They're married to other people.
Ooh.
And it's the portrait of their relationship. It's a little bit messy because there's a lot of characters and the timelines are a little bit out, but that all sort of gets clear and nice as the novel goes on, I think. That's my pet peeve that I can't.
Makes me crazy. You're like, they've done this artful misalignment of timelines to make you experience it in a certain way, and you're just like holding your breath until it evens out.
It doesn't even out. It's still all over the place, but it.
I understand.
I find that sort of stuff a little bit confusing, and Now they were 4-star books, those ones. These next 4, I feel like I'm a bit mean giving them 4 stars, but I don't want to give them 5 stars, if that makes sense.
So they're still 4-star books.
So they're still 4-star books, but they're like upper 4-star books, In a world of 4-star books, they're 5-star novels.
I don't care.
Yeah. Prior to this reading experience, I have said some dumb things about some Victorian authors and novels, and I'm going to point out how I'm wrong.
Ooh, Kate, are you watching?
Who's watching?
Kate.
Kate. This is not for you, for Kate.
No,
yet.
not yet.
Not yet. This is Elizabeth Gaskell, the most boring writer ever.
So KT, are you watching?
KT, yes. North and South.
Yeah.
And this is a really good book. What was really interesting for me, I read this book. This was, I think, it was a very early, I think it was the first novel I read. And the last novel I read for the month before was Germinal by Zola. And that's about mining. This is about cotton industry. And it's just, there's
Both
a lot
little bit lefty, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities. The best review, the most popular review on Goodreads says North and South is Pride and Prejudice for socialists. And it kind of is. Like, it's a bad description, but as far as a very short one-line description, it kind of gives you exactly what you're looking in for. This was great. I am actually, this is a book that I have put straight down as a reread later on. I was tempted to just do it twice because
it was good and it warranted it.
It was good, and I was aware that little bits were going missing in my brain. So I wanted to reread it and get the whole lot, but then I got distracted by other books. This is
The Life of a Reader.
The Life of a Reader. This is a lovely book. A lot of people have read this recently that we follow and we like as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's great. It tells the story of Margaret Hales. She lives in the South with her mother and father. And then they move up north to an industrial town. She's a bit prejudiced towards the people they move up with. There, she meets some people. She has some experiences. There's a strike. Her mind changes. And then over the top of this, there's like a whole love story going on as well.
Yeah.
So I like that there's almost two novels here going on, but it's all the same characters. Like,
yeah, it's a complex story.
It's a complex story, yeah, and I really enjoyed that part of it. Yeah, so this is a quality book. Yeah. All right, the next one, New Grub Street by George Gissing. This is a novel about the publishing industry in Victorian society. It tells the story of a man called Reardon. Reardon is a bit of an idealist. He has a bit of money. He marries a woman a little bit above him. He's banking on his literary ability to make him enough money to keep her in the life that she expects, and he flops. And there is strain on the marriage, and she wants him to keep writing and trying, and she's like, I don't mind poverty if you keep trying. And he's like, but you do mind poverty and I want to work. And they have this unreconcilable fight. And that is this lovely, complex love story with money in the background and class. And it's a critique of like society at the time. But that's not the whole story. Then there is another man and another man. There's like so many other people who are writing. There's a lady who's writing. I particularly love the character of Biffin. He's just brilliant. I just don't want to say too much because I will spoil it.
Then you should stop. Gushy, gush,
But
man.
yeah, this was very, very good. And social critiques is what I really do enjoy.
Leftist little reaffirms Scott's own beliefs. So no.
Yeah. This one here is A Burglary by Amy Dilwyn. I sort of decided to read this to be contrary because
no one's read it.
There's 8 other people on Goodreads that have read this book, and I'm like, yeah, I will be. I mean, there was 7. I was number 8, so I thought, yeah, that's nice. I will do that. I'll keep it up for the video, for the discussion. This tells the story of Imogen, and her brother Ralph, but mainly Imogen, they leave their house one morning.
Yeah.
They come back. They find it robbed.
They've been burgled.
But they haven't been burgled. The Baroness who is staying there overnight has been burgled. Right. This was fun. The character Imogen is so likable. Her favourite hobby is moth hunting.
Oh, is this the one with the really horrible font?
Yeah, you didn't like this when I showed it to you.
It hurts my eyes.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but I think horses are horses.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was good. This was quite funny too. What happens is then the wrong man is accused, and then we have this social commentary. It's incredibly funny. It's a little bit mysterious. It's a little bit sensationalist. What this book really suffers from, though, is it's jack of all trades, masters of none. It's like so many different genres, but it doesn't quite nail a genre. But the writing is lovely. The scenery that she paints in the early scenes, half of this book is in Wales, half of this book is in London.
Wales is so pretty.
And she's just, the writing is nothing at all like Hardy, but the images that she created in the early scene really did remind me of Thomas Hardy when he talks about, she was nothing like him, but that sort of imagery just reminded me of him. Got 2 books to go.
Good, because I'm sick of listening.
You're sick of listening here. Okay, the other time that I was less than correct.
This is where Kate should listen.
This is where Kate should listen. A few years ago, I read Nelle's best friend's Kate's favourite book, Wuthering Heights.
Yep.
And I gave it 1 star.
Kate basically called him a numpty.
And after reading my review on Goodreads for it, fair enough. So
it's not 1 star. How many stars is it?
This is one of the last books I finished. I've put it down as 4.
But it really should be 5.
But I'm still digesting it.
Yeah.
It's the problem with this book is everything that makes it excellent also makes it terrible. For example, this book consists of 2 generations of people who all have the same name.
Yes.
Now, for literary purposes, that's brilliant, right? What Emily Bronte is doing there, she's, drawing allusions to other characters when she's talking about different characters. It's lovely and brilliant. It's not half confusing, though. That is, I wanted to call it unnecessarily confusing, but it's quite necessary. She has an unreliable narrator, and then she switches to another narrator who is also unreliable and biased in the same direction. And then the thing that everybody's going to tell you about this is her characters
are all hard.
Are assholes. And I remember reading this the first time, and I remember going, yes, Heathcliff is a bastard. And Kathy is not much better. Catherine. He called her Kathy once. And I've changed it. Yeah, so not much better. But Nellie Dean, she annoyed me so much. And as we're reading this book, as I'm going through this book, I kept thinking to that. There's a scene quite early on where Catherine pinches Nellie and then she slaps her in the face. And I just kept remembering that, and I'm like, good. She got something. She deserved that. But the literary analysis that you could do with this, that they put this on high school courses, is just mean.
It's good. No, it's because it's dripping. It's easy. There's lots of low-hanging fruit. And for those who are so inclined, there's never-ending, passages to follow.
There is. Her writing is very pretty.
It is very lovely, and also it's not this copy. It just smells.
It's quite an odd copy, isn't it?
It smells like books.
It's stuffed up, but there's some disturbing scenes in this. do not go into this thinking it's a love story. It's not. It's about toxic masculine, not toxic masculine, just toxicness.
I feel like it really is a sign of how sexist our society is, that people think that because a woman wrote this, it's a love story. Because it's the only reason anyone would ever think that this is a love story.
I kept thinking, well, like, I mean, he says he's in love with her, but
it's not what it's about.
But it's not. It's about, like, possession and so much other stuff, and revenge and
meanisms.
Yeah. And every narrative is biased against Heathcliff, and he's still a bastard. That leaves me with one book, and it's this one. That's George Eliot's Middlemarch. This book is not an easy book to read. I just want to say, like, this book is, as far as hard writing to read, I think this is one of the hardest books I will ever read, but it's also one of the most rewarding books. George Eliot is absolutely hilarious. The amount of times she satirizes. If you didn't think that she was funny, you could think that she was a very horrible person. The amount of times she says horrible things about the sexes, and puts them in the mouth of women, and you know that she's doing that to mock. So she's really funny. The other thing I want to say about this book is, I see people talk about this book all the time, and the first character they mention is Dorothea, and whether they liked Dorothea and her storyline sort of dictates whether they like this novel. And I think that, like, the storyline of Rosalind and the storyline of Fred hardly at all touch the storyline of Dorothea, and you could almost separate this out into 3 novels. I mean, you can't, because Rosalind and you just can't. But the storyline of Rosalind and the storyline of Fred are just as important, and I mean, essentially, Dorothea is a story about infidelity. Fred is a story about money and marriage, and Rosalind is a story about both of those things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, essentially, as far as I can see, Rosalind is actually the most important character in this book, because she ties it all together. But yeah, this is really good literature. I will say that this is my second, so it's a reread for me. And the first time I read this book, it was my, like, equal favourite book ever read. Second read through, it doesn't quite stand up to that, but it doesn't quite stand up to that, and it's still just blown away awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and so much analysis to be had on that one, and so much fun too.
That's good.
Yeah. All right, now that is my ridiculous hordes of book.
You done
I'm done.
talking?
I'm done.
Awesome. My turn.
What have we got?
Margaret Atwood, The Robber Bride, my brutalized copy.
I feel like if the dog was going to chew a copy of a Margaret Atwood book,
this is probably the one I'd forgive him for.
Yeah.
We started this as a buddy read, and I sort of dropped off a little bit. I mean, to be fair, mostly because I didn't love it. The writing is standard sort of Atwood quality. I did not realise until partway through it that it was a retelling of a fairy tale with a gender flip.
Oh, what's a fairy tale?
The Robber Bridegroom.
Oh, okay.
And that probably I feel like if I had have gone and read that first, maybe that might have helped a little bit. But I really did struggle with sort of the demonization of Xenia as a feminist concept. And I know that that was part of the whole discussion, and I get it. But I just felt like this is a little bit dated as far as how women talk about women now.
Such a simple book too, wasn't it?
It was very simple, and knowing that it was based on a fairy tale really did make sense of it for me a lot more, because I didn't understand before knowing that what her overarching purpose for this book was, having read her other books, which are so clearly written with an idea, a core idea that she wants people talking about, I guess. You know? And I didn't understand what the core idea was for this. It was, you know, beautifully written. It was a good story. The characters were all, you know, interesting and believable, but it really came down to the way the women spoke about Xenia as, you know, as the husband stealer, and the men weren't always, well, the men were never held to account, and
that was deliberate though.
It was, but it just made me so uncomfortable, and
I was annoyed that we didn't get inside Xenia's head. I didn't understand why she was doing any of it.
Not having her perspective at all really bothered me. But it's because she's supposed to be, like, it's the fairy tale. He's a golem, so he doesn't have a perspective. He doesn't have a soul.
Ah.
So I don't know. It wasn't my favourite. I did get something out of it. I did get some enjoyment out of it. But probably my least favourite outward so far.
As far as like the plot goes, did you like? Because when I read it, I just wanted to find out what was happening next the whole time.
It was really really well written to pull you through the plot of the book. But I was just hoping it would be what it was.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be what it was.
Yeah,
so
the whole time you were waiting for that
the
twist to make it
whole
good.
time I
weren't you?
I really was. I was waiting for it to be something other than what it was. And so every turn of a corner, every reveal, I was just disappointed that it was just turning out to be the novel that I pretty much predicted from the start. Which was disappointing.
We read this with Melissa at Fully Booked. I
We
don't think
did.
we said that.
We did. And I was a terrible buddy reader because I just didn't really talk about it because I was a bit disappointed, basically.
But you got busy and stuff happened. And
Things happen.
Yeah. What are you going to talk about next, Nell?
I'm going to talk about my Victober read. I read my first ever Thomas Hardy.
Oh, we're going to finally find out what you thought of it.
The Life and Death of the Mayor of Casterbridge. Hardy's writing is lovely. And I will definitely read another Hardy. I enjoyed the story of this book, but I don't love conflict that is built on misunderstandings or secret keeping. Yeah. It tends to be like a trope of bad romance books, and I felt like it was heavily leaned on in this. Everyone says that this is sort of a Hardy sensationalist novel, so I hope that his other plots are more solid, I guess. You sort of got a little bit of a taste for how he could create a tragedy, although this wasn't particularly tragical. But I did really enjoy it.
I mean, it still was a tragedy, though.
I mean, yes-ish.
But this is, I mean, as silly as this is one of his happier novels, isn't it? Like,
yeah, I think it's got quite a happy ending. Like, I mean, there is a sad element to the ending, but it's.
See, I think that one of the problems that you will have had with this novel that you haven't said is you're meant to sympathise with Michael in this novel, and I suspect that you just hated him the whole time and sympathised with Elizabeth Jane, and that was it.
He's not a very sympathetic character. He's a prat.
Yeah. But you're meant to see how he's tried to reform himself.
But he's never not selfish in his motivation.
Yes.
Even when he's trying to reform, he's only ever trying to reform for his own selfish reasons for himself. Because selfish, self. So he's not a sympathetic character. I would be... I don't understand anyone sympathising with him. He's just, he's a prat. But I think most of the characters in this are very flawed, and it was interesting because of that. And I don't think that you lose the tragedy because he's unsympathetic. I just think it's not the hugest tragedy in the scheme of tragedies. But I did enjoy it. All of those negative things that I just said, I did actually really enjoy reading. The Hardy,
yeah. I'm sure we can find a Hardy novel for you.
Yeah, his writing style definitely gave me the impression that there will be books of his that I really, really enjoy, and the quality of his expression and his descriptive passages are top notch. Maybe we need to go on with a sledgehammer next and give you Jude or Tess. Maybe. Or I'll pick my own books.
You'll always do that.
The last one I've read is a quickie, Every Heart a Doorway by Sean Maguire. I have seen this recommended, this series, the Wayward Children series, recommended all over BookTube lately, and when I realised that Sean and Maguire fit into my LGBTQIA criteria for book hauling, I was onto it, and I read this in like an afternoon, and it was awesome. It was great fun. I mean, like, it's a kid's book, but I'm going to read the whole series for sure. It's got like a really interesting premise. The characters are all like engaging. There's lots of potential for like emotional exploration without it getting too like embedded in teen angst as the YA things tend to do. And there's worlds upon worlds upon worlds. Like, it's... I think this is a really, really great idea. Reminds me a little bit of The Folk in the Faraway Tree.
Yeah, okay. Moonface and...
Well, just because The Folk in the Faraway Tree...
that's racist, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's not great. Enid Blyton, not so great.
No,
but I read a lot of her in my childhood. But The Folk in the Faraway Tree is for very young children, but you visit a new world sort of every chapter.
Yeah.
And this, because the premise is that it's a school for children who have returned from other dimensions and other worlds, who've gone through the Looking Glass like Alice and then come home again, and it's a school to help them adjust to sort of being back in the real world, I guess, and the idea that this might be the real world and not the other world. But because of that, there's so much scope for all of these different worlds that these children have visited. It's just it's clearly got endless possibilities for.
Did you have fun reading it?
Yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a fun book.
It's a fun book, and I think there's probably some literary merit in there too. But honestly, I zipped through this so fast. I just really enjoyed the story of it.
I really liked how we picked this book for you because, I mean, you
It was
picked
fun.
it, but we went through Nell's TBR and we got 16 of the smaller books. Like, we just picked 16 small books.
Skinny looking ones.
And then I hid them from Nell and I grabbed 2 and I'm like, this one or this one, quick. And we did like a knockout round.
Yeah.
And this is the one that ended up winning.
And now I'm reading The Dick, which was the one that came second.
And because you were saying you were in a little bit of a reading rut and you wanted some quick, easy, knock it on the head, get some momentum up.
Yeah, I find that if I get stuck in one book for too long, I tend to get really, like, my pace of reading and how often I want to read does tend to slow down. And sometimes I can maneuver through that by reading a few books simultaneously and swapping between them as my mood suggests. But at the moment, I have so many half-finished books going, and I'm clearly in like a bit of a slump. I just feel like I need to like read some easy shit, to be honest, and just life is hard for us a bit at the moment, and I'm working a lot, and you're working a lot, and it's not gonna let up until after Christmas. So
Yeah.
so it might be lots of reviews of short, skinny ones for me for a little bit.
Oh, doesn't matter.
I think that's fine.
Review what you read.
That's it.
Yeah. I think that's the end of our review.
That's
Our
the
wrap.
story.
Woo, it's not gone for an hour. It's only 46 minutes. If you enjoyed this video and you got to the end, give us a like. Subscribe if you're new here. If you are new here, yay.
Bye.
Bye.